All right, what's up, folks? So here's the motor. Let's put back together. Rebuilt everything, all the seals. I went on ahead and replaced the rear main seal too, so that's done. Only thing I got left, honestly, I got a coolant temp sender I can put in there, but that's besides the point. Let me show you something. Me and Powers Outdoors got to sitting there talking yesterday, and he brought up one thing. He said, "Well, you know, check the location, the bolt holes for the mount." So I went looking around here, and I did discover that there's a hairline fracture down there. There you go, right there. You see that little fracture? He did bring that up, but that's not the problem of what we got going on, because there's just no oil galleries around that area. But that, I mean, that is a thing though, but it just doesn't seem like it's extending up, further up towards the block, where it will affect the head gasket. So with something like this, what can happen if it extends up to the head gasket, it'll work its way to a weak point and it'll cause the head gasket to leak coolant. But let me show you what I found out. So for some strange reason, yesterday, I don't know why this test didn't work, but I was testing the wrong thing. And like I said, it's either gonna be one of these two components here, where the oil enters, or will the oil, well, obviously where the oil enters and from one of these passages. I tested this wrong here. That's what happened. Let me show you where the actual leak is coming from. So yeah, this is where the place of pressure have to be. And this is what's taking place. So this is where the oil pressure comes from the block that feeds all the major components to here into the cylinder head. And we saw that it makes this transition over to the cylinder head, or the upper end, through the head gasket. And being that the bore is a little thicker, it goes through the bolt and enters the cylinder head. So what's taking place, this has a major responsibility in this particular port, this bolt hole. And unfortunately, porosity took its course and wore out the base there, which caused this to leak oil. And it makes sense because it's semi-permeable enough to, how can I say this? Well, I'm gonna have to test this out. I'm gonna dry this bore out, and then we're gonna fill this up with water and see if it's able to make the exchange. But at the moment, because of the responsibility of this particular bolt and the clamping force with the threads, well, that water and that 14 psi wasn't able to make this exchange. So not only did that fluid have to get through into this bore, but it also had to get through the threads and compete with that oil. And that oil has about 60 psi of oil pressure. So that's what makes sense why we weren't getting that proper exchange. So let me show you what was going on. And I don't have no warning about, I got 90 psi in here, but it don't seem like it take that much. Look at this. There's our leak right down there. If I take the air pressure away, seems like we can see it. Oh, you can actually see it. Look at that. It's a fracture down there at the base. Let me see if I can add a little bit of air pressure in there. Maybe we can see it a lot better. Yep, you can see the fracture. That's exactly what that is. You see that brown area? That brown, so between those two bubbles, there's a hairline fracture going around that bend, and that's exactly where our leak is coming from. That's it. So let's do this. I'm gonna clean this bore out here, and I'm curious if it's going to fill up with water or not. Let me see if I can back out. So let's clean this out and then fill this up with water and see if it's able to enter this area here. only got to compete through this small little crack to get inside of here, but it's also got to make its way through those threads. And that, I mean, the torque specs was for this 23, 49, 40, was it 23 or 29, 43 foot-pounds, and then 90 degrees. So it's probably like 75, 80 foot-pounds of torque on this. So it's got to push its way through all that and then compete against that thick oil pressure. It ain't gonna work out. So this all makes perfect sense now. Has it moved any? No. I mean, that's a little bit of residue that's in there now, but it's nothing significant. Yeah, I'm just gonna let it sit. I still gotta get this motor in the vehicle, but I said, man, I was excited. I'm glad I found where it specifically was leaking. But that helpful tip about the motor mount did come into play. But I mean, I was gonna come back out and inspect this joker anyway. But it would have been interesting for it to be in that area. But again, there was no pressure in this region here where that bolt hole for the mount go. It was only going to be between these two. But I appreciate the suggestion because it made me look a lot harder in the block. So give me a minute. Let me get this motor in here, make sure my works out and the engine starts up. Because, you know, I do screw up a lot. But I mean, you can't screw up a motor like this, right? It's a pretty easy motor to build. And this is where I started. So let me get this in here. We'll do the first start up and then get some miles driven on it and go from there. And I was thinking, in hindsight, knowing what I know now, if I had to go through this again, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be honest. If I knew what I knew now, I'm going to tell you what I would have did. I would have took that one bolt out, put some RTV sealant on the end of it, ran that joker back in there and call it a day. I'm going to be honest. It's because the engine ran so well. I hate to even have to compromise, like rebuilding the whole motor just for that. And on a serious note, if I had this issue and the engine ran as good as it did, take that one bolt out, pull it out, clean the bore really good, put some RTV sealant in it, torque it back down. It's not going to hurt anything as far as the torque specs go, but I mean, it'll. That's the only issue. The block didn't have no other problems but that. Call me crazy, call it a patch job. But if you know, even with some of the Chevy head bolts, some of them you got to put sealant around the threads when you put the heads in. When you rebuild the heads. Correct me if I'm wrong. But even though the torque specs may be off, that $10 tube of RTV sealant is going to save you thousands of dollars, especially with these very specific symptoms of this. Yes, the block technically needs to be replaced, but you tell me, would you rather put some stop leak in here and that crap don't work? Obviously, because I mean, it's just the wrong pressure transition. I mean, not pressure transition, but wrong fluid transition. Or just take a bolt out. You don't even have to take the cams out. Take the bolt out, put some RTV on it, run that joker back in there, call it a day. Hey, call it a patch job. But if it was my car or a customer car, I would run that by him all day. Hey, this is what we can do because you have these very specific symptoms. Let's try this and see what happens. But hey, look, nobody on the internet had this answer to this problem, and finally I was able to investigate and find it. Now, again, these are very, 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 very specific symptoms. They're not the traditional blown head gasket symptoms. Did a pressure test, which was questionable, but again, it didn't lead up to a conclusion with the gas test. And I really suspect because of how oil interacts with the combustion, the vapors came in contact with that leak, that dye, and that's what caused the transition, because it had an overwhelming amount of oil, which have combustion process mixed in with it. And then, it was a slow introduction of oil. and this is the only place the oil is going to come from on this particular block because of how it's designed. The oil feed behind the block is remote. It's pretty far back. This is the only place, this is the closest, the most intimate section to the coolant system with all the oil galleries. And it's pressure there. So we got our answer. Let me get this motor installed, and we're gonna get the first start up, and we'll go from there. I got everything back together. I'm just putting nothing but water in there at the moment because obviously we got to make sure this doesn't contaminate itself again. And you know, if it don't, I mean, I'm gonna just have to flush this water out, get remainder of any residual oil. Any water dripping. Get any residual oil out the coolant system and just top the coolant off. That's it. So I did check over my work. There was some things, some little hose or something that was disconnected while pouring water in here. This is not my first round. Man, it seemed like I'm having to pour a lot of water in it. Okay, so I think we're good there. Put this cap on it. Thermostat is in it because I'm just going off the best case scenario. This starts up perfectly fine and I have no issues. But hey, I'm prepared for my bad luck to manifest again, but I'm going to be positive. I'm going to think positive, optimistically right now. Now, I'm going to be honest. I expect some sort of cylinder wash type sound when I was spinning the engine over to put the flex plate bolts in there to the torque converter. It didn't feel like I had a lot of bounce back with the compression. But again, you know, I just put the head gasket on. Maybe I'm just a little nervous. And the engine's been sitting out in the yard for a while. I will say though, this oil's gonna be clean for a very long time because I cleaned that oil pan out and it actually felt like 5.5 quarts of oil with that first fill up because all that residual oil is not sitting in the bottom of the pan. Batteries hooked up, all the grounds, which is the only one that was on the intake. Can't screw up the timing here. Now I did not spin the engine over after I did the timing belt. You know, I have a bad habit of doing that, and I need to tell myself to spin it over, but I've been doing these a lot. I mean, what worst could happen, right? All right, everything's, I think we're good. Vacuum lines, gaskets, all that, oil's fine. Okay, let's do our first startup, see what happens. Sounds freaking amazing. If there's no pressure in the cooling system, it's not bubbling out. Hey, the camera's not even vibrating, you know, so that should tell you something. So we're gonna let this do its thing. That should let you know I put the balance shafts on properly. Camera's not trembling and shaking. Make sure there's no oil leaks. Seems to be fine. Check on the bottom by the rear main seal. Timing cover, all that seems to be okay. Think she's gonna be bone dry. Let's pull that radiator cap off again. Coolant drop, no big deal. Just gotta get through the heater core and stuff too. Beautiful, still perfectly clean. Amazing. This is what we're dealing with. Check the mileage. Yeah, the heat's working great. So we're at, oh, she drove 782 miles since, that's how long she drives a lot. All right, we're gonna reset the mileage. I'm gonna get 20 miles on here and we're gonna check out the coolant, make sure it's not contaminated, and I'll give you my feedback. I just got back. I got close to 25 miles driven on it. Let's take a look at the coolant. Here's our coolant. So the residue I expect to float up to the top, that's just the residual stuff. This is nothing. The big telltale is how the coolant is still retaining its clear color. What I'm gonna do, I'm satisfied with this. Like I said, I can wipe this off. Oil's just gonna float up to the top just naturally. I'm gonna drain this out and we're gonna take a look. And just so you can see, ain't no card tricks around here. That's nice and clear. Like I said, I expect some of the oil to get on the cap. I mean, like I said, it was just little bits floating around in there. And nothing to just wipe that off. And if you remember, you have to look at all the old videos, but before it would keep that tan haze. We just need some translucent color, just the natural organic color of water. It is clear. That's all I need. Uh-oh, why did I do that? Oh yeah, that looks really good. That looks good. It looks fine. This is the color of it now. Like I say, nowhere near what it was before. And this is just the little bit that was sitting inside of the cooling system. Before, it was way worse than this. I mean, you know, if you feel better, I probably could just run another round of water just to be on the safe side. But it doesn't have no oily residue to it. Doesn't smell like oil, it's just pure water. Just a little bit of haze of the residual that was laying around. This is inside the radiator. It looks beautiful. I still need to get some of the bits on the outside off. No big deal. I wanna I could just throw antifreeze in it now and get it out the way. I mean, because I feel good about what's taking place. So, I mean, I ain't gotta fight with it anymore. I can get some of that extra coolant out. So let me let the rest of it flush out. I got green antifreeze in here now. And like I was saying, I expect these little bits to show up here and there. But the big thing is, as long as it's not mixing with the antifreeze in a disproportionate amount. I mean, this is just residual. Like I was saying, I can't stress that enough. So I expect a little bit to come out over the next few days. Here's the rest of it I pulled out, and again, it's water for the most part. I mean, I'm not complaining at all, and it doesn't have any oily residue from like before. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take another. I check my oil level. Oh shoot, I'll find it. I'm gonna take another 20-mile test drive, and then just recheck it and see what it's looking like. But right now, man, everything's looking fine. I went on a nice long drive, and I'm tapped out tonight at 84 miles. Let's take a gander at it. What we're dealing with. Oil going back into the crankcase. Yeah, so we're good. We're in good shape. Looks beautiful. Perfect green. perfect universal green. Here's the reservoir green. I mean, I can tell you by now, it would have been jacked up right now. I can verify that this block is good. Being that I was able to see specifically what took place with the old engine, and being that we disassembled the new used motor, and before that I went to go look at the donor engine. So yeah, it came out of a good car. The radiator looked good in the other car. Ain't no doubt about it, this engine would have worked. But my biggest concern, because I didn't discover the leak, in hindsight, I was a little concerned, because I'm like, well, what if the machine shop screwed up? That's not the case. Since we discovered, we know where the leak is. She good. Drove perfectly fine. If I feel comfortable driving it, the customer's gonna feel comfortable driving the car. The check engine light is on because of I just put a new knock sensor on there, and I'm not sure why I still throwing a knock sensor code. It won't doing it before I touched it, so I'm gonna have to figure out if I did something when I took the knock sensor out. It was a $14 knock sensor anyway, so I'll fix that later. But the biggest thing is the engine runs perfect. The block is in good working order. There's no issues. This headache is now relieved, and it's good to go. I would like to address some of the negative comments, some of the discouraging comments. While I'm still on my little caffeine high here. Hold on, let me get my little light. This is gonna be a little off the cuff here, but I get that some people probably would have been like, you know what, throw the whole car away. They're not going to deal with it. And I'm going to put it this way. This is what separates me between a lot of other mechanics that are around here. And there's a common theme with a lot of mechanics that I have to deal with and interact with that is very telling of their intellectual capacity. And it's the fact that a lot of people aren't willing to take on, I hate to say big jobs, because it's not a big job. I just want to say mentally taxing things. And most of the stuff I do, I'm the guy who got to get the car that has been through like 3 to 4 different mechanics, and now they're about tapped out of money, and now I got to figure out what's wrong with it. I mean, it's bittersweet. Not only am I the guy who have to fix the car, but I'm the guy who also gained a client base, a new client base, a good seed that's going to sprout into a nice flourishing tree, and hopefully they're going to branch off and bring me a lot of customers. I mean, I stay busy. There's a lot of stuff that I just don't upload, but I stay busy. And I do get people that call and ask me questions. I'm going to be honest. I don't have anybody I can sit there and call and ask, like, hey, I got this waveform here. Can I get your perception? I ain't got nobody I can do that shit with. I ain't got nobody I can sit there and call and get their perception on like issues like this. This was all me. I had to figure this stuff out on my own. The internet, y'all know how useless going through forums, how useless they are. You can start talking about a coolant intrusion, and next thing you know, people are talking about the air pressure in the freaking tires. Like, what the hell that guy do with anything? Nothing. So it says a lot about the intellectual capacity of people. Those are the guys who are still putting oil in oil filters when changing the oil. Those are the guys who are putting anti-seize on spark plugs when changing the spark plugs, So, I mean, I get it. They're the parts changers. Those are the people who shoot parts at it. If you kind of get what I'm saying with my my username here, part shooter. The intentions is pretty much the antithesis. Now, I'm trying not to shoot parts at a car, but I get why a lot of people do it. But here's the thing. What y'all don't understand is y'all are going to get phased out in the future. And this is what makes this job extremely frustrating, because just like something stupid, simple as the scan tool requiring you to retain a subscription just so you can put the car into service mode and to even do a throttle, I don't want to say initialization, but a throttle relearn procedure, that's another thing that's going to phase us out. So imagine the people who are willing to say, well, you know what? I can't deal with it. This is basic stuff. I hate to say it, but now that I was able to figure this out, now I know what needs to take place in the future, even though this car is like ancient right now for the future.
I'm aware. I had to rub 3 brain cells together to come up with some sort of game plan to be able to discover what took place with this engine so I can show it to somebody else. Now, I hate to say it, but this is one of the reasons why a lot of people aren't willing to share stuff online, because people are going to be ungrateful and unappreciative because they don't take that knowledge and combine it with what they know to create new ideas. They're stagnant, just like a lot of the old heads that call me and ask me questions about how to fix a vehicle. You can't talk to them on an intellectual basis or a constructive basis because they don't have a diagnostic strategy. And I feel like I'm gonna start bitching right now, but I get that, and it's so frustrating because, again, I don't have nobody to call. I don't. And again, I'm referring to the people who said, like, oh, I would have. That's fine. Don't deal with it. Change the brakes. Change the spark plugs on the car. Do the oil changes in the valve cover. I get it. But again, in the next 5 to 10 years, you're going to be phased out. And trust me, if you the frustration shows on my face. My hair's getting gray. I'm irritable on a regular basis because you just don't know what you're getting. You can't go to AutoZone, get a scanner and scan a car and replace a part. Sorry, man. It's like, dude, those days are gone. I don't want to go too great. How far? I think I've been complaining about 5 minutes. I think that's long enough. But yeah, I mean, I get why some of the people are going to be like, I don't want to deal with it. And I created a straw man to rant about. But I totally get it. Trust me. I wish I can be that guy to just do CV axles and brakes and rotors all day. Man, that would be amazing. That's money making cake work. But you gotta take the good with the bad, and you just take on the project. But again, in regards to this particular car, I've been working on this entire family cars for a year. I work on all their stuff. I mean, they do have another mechanic, but when things get complex, who do you think they're going to go to? I mean, they go to me. I don't mind interacting with the other mechanic, just like I had the dad's car that came. I didn't document that, but that was a Dodge with a computer problem. It was essentially brain dead. The other mechanic replaced 4 different components: ignition switch, crank sensor, cam sensor, and I think he was questioning about doing a fuel pump. Had to get towed here. Took me 5 minutes to diagnose that fucking thing. And hey, we need a computer. Put a computer in it. It worked for today. Unfortunately, the next day, guess what? The computer broke. It started stalling again. So we think I didn't scratch my head or anything because I had a diagnostic strategy. Knew I needed another computer. Put another computer in there and it works fine. Even though they are brand new computers, they still fail. And like I said, I'm not insecure. I'm not an insecure mechanic. As my ex told me, my ex several exes ago, you're not the only mechanic. So, which is true. But I can observe that I can see the elements with a lot of other mechanics. They're not willing to go that extra mile to familiarize themselves with what's taking place with these vehicles to ensure that these don't come back. So there's a big difference between me and the guys who were unwilling to take on some of these jobs. Don't get me wrong. I hate BMWs. I don't even document the BMWs I work on. I had an Audi yesterday. And it took me 8 hours to do a PCV system. I'm not going to document that stuff. A lot of stuff I just don't tend to document because it's frustrating. I document the hard, easy stuff. Just put it that way. That's all I can say. But yeah, other than that, hey, look, this car is done. It's fixed. I'm glad it's done. It was discouraging. It felt like it did not want to be fixed. I persevered, overcame, and here we are. It's working fine like it's supposed to. I kept my client. I got the money. And even though it felt like it was a waste of time, I've learned something in time, and you're going to pay in education some way, whether you pay in having to formulate some sort of diagnostic strategy, or you're going to pay and taking some sort of course, you're going to pay. And so, hey, look, if anything happened, I'm going to definitely update it. But the next video I am going to dish out is how to prevent yourself from getting scammed over like this, because I think that's going to be a necessity for something that took place such as this. What to look for. I'm gonna come up with a nice list, and some of the things that I have to deal with when I get these cars, especially since tax season's coming. Oh yeah, we're gonna get new clients. Tax season's coming. People are gonna buy these new crap cars, and it's a rinse and repeat cycle. Rinse and repeat. So I'm gonna show you some things that are very common that take place that I've discovered, especially when it comes to driving a vehicle. Next thing you know, check in light pop on. Well, what to look for? Maybe some other mechanics who are, I'm just going to joke around and say, I'm going to call them the old heads, but I'm getting old my damn self. Maybe this is something that they can't see, or something you can use a generic scanner for to be able to observe to prevent that from happening to your client. So anyway, I'll definitely use that as a finalized video for this particular, scam series here with this Facebook Marketplace video. But hey, look, if anything happened, I'll definitely update. Hit that link, subscribe channel, stay informed, and have a real my work. See you next one.